welcome to the garden. Today we'll be exploring why some cucumbers are more bitter than others and how to prevent and treat it. Cucumbers, gourds, and squash produce a bitter compound known as cucurbitacins, and the plants naturally produce these to prevent grazing herbivores from eating them. These are normally concentrated in the leaves, stems, and even roots, but they can make their way into the fruit, especially in the skin and towards the end closest to the vine. The plants can produce more of these compounds under stress, whether it's lack of water, intense heat, or fluctuating temperatures. So we want to keep them consistently well watered and try to avoid the hottest areas of the garden. I grow these white spine cucumbers. You can really see why they get their name. They're covered in these tiny little spikes. These can actually just be brushed away, but they provide a nice defense for the fruit until they're fully ripe. These are sometimes called an American cucumber, and they tend to look more like pickles, whereas an English cucumber is longer, thinner, and has stripes or ridges running along the fruit. American cucumbers will generally be more bitter than English cucumbers, so if you're having problems, you might want to switch to a different variety. So the first thing we're going to do when harvesting a new cucumber is to wipe it down with a wet towel. It's not enough just to rinse it. We really want to wipe it down and hopefully remove some of the bitterness off of that skin. And this may be all you need to do. If your cucumber is still bitter after wiping them down, you can peel away part or all of the skin. And I like to do little patterns, alternating stripes like this. This is a really cool technique because once we slice it, we get these beautiful slices. Just look at that amazing pattern. And of course, if it's still bitter, you can just remove all of the skin. Now that's where a lot of the nutrients are, but if it is too bitter, you're not going to be eating it anyways. So that's an option that works really well. And you still get that great cucumber flavor. And we could probably still use these skins in a cucumber salad because adding things like salt and sugar can help to reduce that bitter flavor. I think it's best to harvest your cucumbers early and often. These younger baby cucumbers are great for making pickles. And the sooner you harvest, the sooner they can produce more fruit. If you are growing these specifically for pickles, I would plant several cucumbers because mine only produce about maybe 5 fruit at a time. And you really want to look around for those low-hanging fruit. Sometimes if you miss one, they'll start producing seeds and the plant will stop producing new fruit. The longer you leave them, the tougher they will be. And then we'll really firmly wipe them down. This is definitely my #1 tip to reduce bitterness. It's just to wipe them with a wet towel. As the cucumbers ripen, they tend to swell, and I also like to look at the blossom end. So this was where the flower used to be. And as they get more and more ripe, this will tend to swell and round. This one still has a fairly nice point to it, so it should be good for eating. The seeds will quickly develop from these little kind of translucent seeds like a seedless watermelon to something much more substantial, which is great for planting but not great for eating. So if you did wait a little bit too long, we can slice our cucumber the long way and then scoop out the seeds with a spoon. Then you can combine that with peeling and then slicing so that you can still eat even an overripe cucumber. But once the skin starts to yellow like this, they can get fairly tough. And eventually you'll probably just want to save them for the seeds. That way you can plant your own next year. You can then scrape them out onto a paper towel or a plate, let them dry, and then store them for when you're ready to plant. I'll usually plant about 4 seeds for every cucumber plant I want in the garden. Sometimes one of them just won't perform or won't produce fruit quite so fast, so it's good to hedge your bets. We'll sow them about an inch under the soil, a few inches apart, up to about a foot, and within a week or two they should germinate, and they'll be ready to harvest in about 2 months. So they're actually a pretty fast growing vegetable, which makes them great for planting later in the summer for an autumn harvest. You definitely want to give your cucumbers something to climb. Stakes work great. Tomato cages actually work really well. Otherwise, they can start vining out all over the place. So now I'm going to slice this up nice and thin for a cucumber salad. And this recipe comes from my grandmother. And this is a great time to use a mandolin if you have one. And to that we will add some thinly sliced onion, and a sprinkle of salt, some sugar, and these will actually help reduce any bitterness left over in those cucumbers. Then some apple cider vinegar. Perfect. Then Grandma's recipe calls for celery seed. But since I don't have any on hand, I'm using a little bit of celery salt and then some very thinly sliced celery. Then we'll mix this all together and refrigerate, just stirring occasionally. And the cucumbers are going to soften up in that salt and the vinegar. And this is such a beautiful side dish. It's just perfect for summer. Just look at how beautiful that is. Wow, that's delicious. So always remember to wipe down your cucumbers with a wet towel. And if they're still bitter, you can try removing the skin or even switch to an English cucumber. Unfortunately, once a plant starts producing bitter cucumbers, it's not likely to stop. So it's probably best to just pull it out and plant a new one. So I hope you give this a grow in your garden. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.